Well, then, so you arrive in Manhattan in 72. By 76, you're promoted to head the sex crimes unit. So was he the one who promoted you? And
No, he died, unfortunately. He died about 18 months after I got there. He was interim DA, and then Bob Morgenthau was elected in 75. And the unit had just started as an experiment before Bob was elected. And he asked me to take it over. And I said, I don't think so, Mr. Morgenthau. I'm just trying a wide variety of crimes, my first murder case. I don't think I want a steady diet of one kind of very difficult crime. And I walked out of his office, and the chief assistant, who's a federal judge now, John Keenan, stopped me and said, this is not a yes or no answer.
You're doing it.
And it was the time of The Godfather. And he said, you can't refuse. So I turned around and went back in and say, I'd like to give it a try. And I was 29. There had been no sex crimes units in the country. The laws were archaic.
Yeah.
And we had a little team that he let me put together, and we went out and really carved a new kind of law.
Yeah, and so the audience knows this really is Law and Order SVU. This is what you basically found. And the show is truly modeled after how you guys did it here in Manhattan.
Totally. Dick Wolf called and said, this is what I'm doing. We get no royalties for it, but...
did they come shadow you for a period of time?
They did at the beginning. They did at the beginning, both Mariska Hargitay and Stephanie March, who was my role, the prosecutor, Alex Cabot.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So prior to you establishing this and developing, I assume, a big book of best practices that other cities then followed, how was it done? It just got spread across the entire DA's office, so no one was really expert in handling these peculiar kinds of cases?
Well, what you've said is exactly right. There was no expertise, but the other point is that the laws were so archaic that very few of these cases could even get into court. Our laws in New York, when I started to do this, required what's called corroboration, and basically meant there had to be an eyewitness to this crime that was least likely to be witnessed. You could have homicides, 10 people looking on in the street, and bank robberies. So corroboration was a huge problem. This is more than a decade before DNA. So identifying the assailant was often very hard, if not impossible in these cases. And then you had to have proof of force. So if a woman said, the guy had a knife and he held it to my neck, so I submitted, she was deemed to have consented because she didn't allow herself to be stabbed. There was no proof of force unless he was caught with the knife in his hand. It was crazy. I mean, they were laws from 17th century England, really 17th century England. So, and pretty much everywhere in the country.
Which city was next to develop a dedicated sex crimes unit?
So, pockets. Seattle, Washington had one, I think, before LA, and then LA, and a lot of the cities began to call and say, can we come in and see what you're doing? Can we read your legislative proposals for changes in the law? Can we see what techniques you're using? So there were 4 of us in my unit, and we welcomed people in, and we wanted this to work. We wanted badly for this to work.
And what year did Dick Wolf come in and start shadowing you to, pursue this idea of SVU?
When did that show start? Good question. I think around 98, 99.
Okay.
Before, he had the idea, and he may have had his first script, and then he said, is it okay? Can I send Mariska down to meet you and shadow you?
That's cool.